Don't call her cute, don't call her feisty. She's a rebel, she is nasty, she is brave. She isn't honey, sweetie, sugar pie, baby. And don't you ever say that she was well behaved. Don't you ever say that she was well behaved. And don't you ever say that she was well behaved.
There. Okay. You sound good.
Yeah.
I sound good.
Yeah.
We sound good together.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I almost dropped it.
Knock everything over.
It's impressive that we haven't just ruined all of the equipment one time.
Yeah.
Closer.
I just keep it in my backpack.
Oh,
and I never take anything out.
Oh.
Otherwise,
that's probably scary.
Well, I mean,
You're
I
just
take
carrying this around every day?
No, I don't take my backpack anywhere except here.
Oh. You don't wear a backpack walking dogs?
No, I use my pockets.
Oh, yeah, that's nice.
Especially in the winter because I have all those
I was about
winter
to say,
pockets.
what do you do not in the winter?
I
have a small bag.
I just, I don't know. I think I just keep it to a minimum.
But don't you want like a water bottle?
No, I like to drink out of fancy glasses at
Every
people's
place
homes.
you go.
Yeah.
That's smart. That's so smart. Yeah. You have stops for water.
Every time I've tried to carry a water bottle with me, I always forget to wash it out, and then it gets moldy. And then even if I clean it eventually, I'm like haunted by the possibility that there's still stuff in there that'll kill me.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good system because you're stopping every house anyway. Just have a cup of water at all the houses.
Mm-hmm. Plus, it means I get to open their cabinet.
Fun. Open them up.
Did I tell you last week when it was really cold, one of the dogs that I walked, their owners left out like tea and hot cocoa for me.
Oh, that's nice.
It was really nice.
But
I almost started crying.
Like a long time to takes a long time to drink a cup of tea, I feel like. You just take it with you.
Yeah, I mean, I just because they get a 45-minute walk usually, but it was so cold that they were like, don't worry about taking them out the whole time. Just take them out to like pee and poop and then just come back in and hang out and make yourself some tea.
Oh,
so they
nice.
gave me time to just snuggle with their dogs.
And hang out.
That's Close my eyes a little bit.
Wow.
Use dogs as a blanket.
Dope.
That's so nice.
That's great. That's really nice of them. Yeah, it was nice that it was just like weirdly 60 degrees yesterday.
It was beautiful.
But
it rained the whole time.
It did rain the whole time. But it's going back to like normal winter now. It's going to be like 20s and 30s.
And we're all going to get real sick.
You're sick already.
I'm always
Are we
sick.
just going to trade each other's sicknesses?
I think so. I'm glad you didn't get that stomach virus.
Oh my God, I'm so glad. That is the worst kind of sickness, is a stomach virus.
I mean, we were sharing dessert last time we saw each other, which wasn't the smartest idea.
I know.
But that Oreo cheesecake was worth it.
It was pretty good.
I would have 5 colds for that cheesecake.
I thought it was like kind of average, and then I brought it home and Louis had some and he was like, no, this is good. And I was like, yes, it is. I don't know. It didn't blow me away, actually. I was a little disappointed, to be honest.
I do have to thank you because I microwaved a stroopwafel the other day.
Yeah.
Thanks for your recommendation because that was a real game changer.
Yeah, just a little bit. Otherwise, if you go too far, it'll like get like dried. But
if you do
a little bit, I did 20 seconds or something.
Yeah, I did about 15 seconds, and then it was hot, and it was like that like gooey caramel.
It's dope. We used to do that all the time when I studied abroad in Amsterdam. We would just microwave stroopwafels. I was in a theater program. We would like roll around on the floor, take clowning class, smoke weed, eat stroopwafels. It was bike around. It was really fun.
That sounds great.
Yeah, it was a good summer.
A few times ago after I left your place, I saw, what's his face biking? The guy from Mad Men, Sterling Cooper.
Really?
Yeah, I saw him and his wife biking down your street. Yeah.
Oh.
I forgot to tell you.
Cool.
He was so handsome.
Yeah, I saw him once in Times Square walking around. I think he was doing a play on Broadway.
What were you doing in Times Square?
It was actually Louis and I were trying to get our visas when we went to China, and we were like running around trying to get passport photos and print things out. The embassy is like on the west side of like in the 40s, and so we had gotten out, and I was like running around trying to get passport photos, and I saw him on the street. No, not that
Cool.
exciting of a story.
What's the most recent celebrity sighting you've had?
I don't think I've had one in a while, actually. I can't remember.
What was the most exciting one?
There was a cool one last year at one point that felt like magical because we were in Central Park, Louis and I, and two guys on bicycles rode past us, and I just heard like half a sentence, and Louis saw like half a face, and we both looked at each other and said Leonardo DiCaprio. Like we barely even saw him, but we knew. He's so deeply ingrained in our psyche that we were both like, that was Leonardo DiCaprio
from Growing Pains.
Yeah, from Growing Pains. So that was pretty cool because it was like, wow, celebrities are weird. Also, he was riding a city bike, which I thought was funny because it feels like he could have just like thrown that city bike off into the river and like just paid for it.
Yeah, or like buy a bike at a shop and then just leave it on the ground and walk away.
Yeah, it seems weird. But I guess maybe he likes the flexibility of the program. I don't know. I'm not gonna knock it.
I think there's also something about celebrities, like people who make a lot of money and then like are good with their money.
Yeah,
don't waste their money on that kind of thing.
Yeah. Anyway, that was a pretty good one.
That is a good one.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there's other ones. When I was 12, I met Matt Damon. They were filming this movie Rounders, and our family friend was the producer on it, and they were filming it in our neighborhood. And so I went after school one day. I went to his trailer, and I just remember that he was eating Chinese food and listening to Chumbawamba and wearing like a white undershirt. And he was on the phone with someone. He was like, "Hey, sorry, I gotta meet these kids." And I was like so hurt that he called me a kid.
Yeah, because you're 12.
So deeply hurt. I was like, "No, Matt, I'm your future wife." But now isn't he bad too?
Yeah, you dodged a bullet.
I don't know. They're all bad.
They're all bad. I saw Woody Allen once.
Oh, actually, I did too.
Really?
My friend Lisa and I.
Speaking of bad apples.
Yeah, I have a picture with him. Her parents came into town, and he plays the clarinet, I think, somewhere in New York City.
He would.
And it was really weird. It was like when we were in college, and his throat, like when he plays it, his throat expands like a frog. It was like really spooky, and he wasn't very good. He was pretty bad. Maybe he was sick or something. It was like he kept missing notes on it, and everyone was just like so happy to be there. And then afterwards, I like made him take a picture with me and Lisa. And then the best thing was that a couple years ago on like International Women's Day, I posted that picture, and I was like, "Happy International Women's Day." So it was worth it for the hot take.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I've been listening.
When did you see Woody Allen?
I saw him from a cab. It was when I worked teaching cooking classes, and we had to go to this school on the Upper East Side, and we took a cab there, and he was just walking down the street, and the girl who I was in the car with, she's the one who spotted him and was like, "Is that Woody Allen?" And we looked over, and it was Woody Allen like walking down the street looking very deep in thought, probably just reflecting on all of his mistakes.
Probably not.
It was probably him being like, "I wonder how much longer can I get away with this? Do you think? How much?"
Did you read that article about like the guy who went through all of his notes at the Princeton Library?
I didn't read it.
So I guess Woody Allen has donated all of his notes to the Princeton Library, and no one had ever like gone through them all. And this writer for the Washington Post was he was working on a project that like someone was doing or something, and he was tasked to go read through all the notes, but then the project didn't happen. But he wrote this op-ed in the Washington Post that was like, Woody Allen, if you couldn't already tell, is like deeply obsessed with teenage girls. Like all of his notes are like teenage girls. It's like very creepy and weird. And he was like, yeah, this was like really shocking to read. And I mean, yeah,
it's creepy and weird also because teenage girls are the worst people.
Yeah, but they have the nicest bodies.
I know. It
is what it is. But no, he's he really likes like, and it was all just like the most misogynistic like language to describe the women and like the characters in his things, and it was whack. I remember I listened to the Julia Louis-Dreyfus WTF once, and she like kind of like skirted around the time that she was in a Woody Allen movie. She was just like, yeah, I guess when you're asked to do a Woody Allen movie, you just do it, but like it wasn't great. That's like what she said.
I wonder what she'd say now if you asked her.
Yeah, probably something much stronger. That was like several years ago before the Me Too stuff. I'm sure she would be much stronger about it now. But
one of my least favorite takes right now is like has the Me Too movement gone too far?
It's like, nah, bitch, just wait.
What about these?
Just you wait.
What about these men, these poor men who now when they're in writers' rooms, they have to think about what they're about to say.
I know.
These poor men. It's so chilling.
Poor
babies.
Poor babies. Well, speaking of no longer of men, should we get into it?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Am I first this time?
I feel yes, you are.
Cool, yeah. Cool. Yeah. So this is coming out on Martin Luther King Day.
Yeah.
So I thought...
We keep putting stuff out on holidays.
Well, there's just a lot of Monday holidays in general, but then also Christmas and New Year's were also Mondays this year. Okay, so I decided to do a civil rights leader because... I need guidance.
Oh, this is well behaved, by the way.
Oh, yeah. This is a podcast about women in history who maybe you haven't heard of. And I'm Molly Ruben-Long.
And I'm Ariel Elias.
And now we're about to talk about some ladies. That was the banter portion of the podcast.
It was really lighthearted and funny.
Yeah, didn't I know? Did you get all the jokes? Maybe you just don't get it. All right. My woman this week is Daisy Bates. She was born November 11th, 1914 in Hudig. I don't know how to pronounce this place in Arkansas, but Huttig. Hudig, Arkansas. Huttig. All right, now it's about to get sad. Okay. Trigger warning, whatever. But so when she was a baby, her mother was sexually assaulted and murdered by 3 white men.
Oh boy.
So that was not cool or good. Her father fled after that happened. Some of the sources I read said it was like he was worried about his safety. I don't know. I guess he was worried about his safety.
That's a good reason.
But also, like, you have a baby, take care of your baby. I don't know.
Oh, did he not bring the baby?
No.
Oh, he
like,
just bounced.
He just like left her. So, like, not great.
Okay.
But whatever. I understand that his life was complicated too.
But bring the family.
Yeah,
if you can.
like take care. You have a baby. It's your baby too. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Whatever. Anyway, so she ends up being adopted and raised by her family friends who, it seems like she had an okay life after that. She attended the segregated public school system in her town, so she experienced firsthand that shit was separate but definitely not equal. There were horrible conditions in her schools, much like the schools in Baltimore now. Did you see all that stuff last week?
I've really missed everything.
Well, when you're working on a packet, it can happen.
I can tell you a lot about the Russian Olympics, though.
I want to know. No, but last week when it was like freezing temperatures, the Baltimore school system like didn't have heat and the kids were wearing their coats inside.
Yeah.
And like the school lunches were all disgusting. It was like
that
atrocious.
This is, not exactly the same, but in my high school, I remember in the summer not having air conditioning, like when school would start back up in August and us having to deal with that.
That's crazy.
But it's such an easier solution because you just go outside and have class outside.
Yeah. No, it's really nuts. So when she was 15, she met her husband, the man who eventually became her husband, but she didn't marry him until she was 27 in 1941. His name was L.C. Bates. He was an insurance salesman.
Like the letters L.C.?
Yeah,
okay.
L.C.
Not E.L.S.I.E.
No, L.C. I don't know what they stood for. And he was a insurance salesman and former journalist. They moved to Little Rock together. And when they moved to Little Rock, her husband started a weekly African-American newspaper called the Arkansas State Press. She joined her husband and started working there as a journalist. And it was the largest black newspaper in Arkansas. There was a focus on social and economic change that was needed for black residents of Arkansas. So it was a civil rights paper, basically. And they ended up publishing an account of police brutality against black soldiers from a nearby army camp, and that lost them a lot of white advertisers, but they kept publishing. So yeah, basically they were like, the paper of the resistance in Arkansas. So she was a public and vocal supporter of the NAACP, and in 1952 she was selected to serve as the president of the Arkansas branch of the NAACP.
Oh, cool.
In 1954, the Supreme Court ruled in Brown versus Board of Education against segregation, and the Little Rock school board was like, all right, but we're just gonna like wait. They were like, okay, like we know, but like no,
make me.
They were like, nah, bitch. So she
it sounds so hard.
She's like, they were like, I don't think so. So she along with the NAACP ends up suing and protesting against this.
Against like their refusal to integrate.
Yeah, they were like, we're gonna do it eventually, and she was like, no, you have to do it immediately. Well,
that's like what New Orleans tried to do.
Yeah, I think that was a big tactic to be like, no, like we'll do it slowly, and she was like, no.
Well, you don't want it to be a shock for people, you know. Like, it could be very traumatizing for
the white people,
for those white children
to like have to interact with other human beings. It's like, oh
god,
hard. It's so difficult. So she like it was like she basically led the charge to, you know, get people into the schools. She started like talking to parents at church and at NAACP meetings and being like, okay, like I think your kid would be a good like person to do this, and like she had to convince all these parents. So basically she also would she would like personally take African American kids to like the quote unquote white public schools and bring newspaper photographers with her so that they could record the kids getting turned away, which is pretty cool. That's smart. All this pressure led to the Little Rock School Board announcing a plan to desegregate the Central High School in September of 1957. So this is 3 years after Brown v. Board. So
I wish you guys could have just seen the look on Molly's face.
It's like what
it was like
3 years.
It was anyway. Like one eye closed, one eye open, but both pointing in different directions.
Yeah, I'm doing it again. You know, it's good
podcasting material.
Very good podcasting material. As they say on a podcast that I really like, I've been listening to a lot lately called Las Culturistas. Which is very funny. That? It's Bowen Yang and Matt Rogers, neither of whom I know, but I'm now a fan of, which is like silly, but they're both New York comedians. Are so funny, and they always are like, podcasting is a visual medium, which I think is so funny. Yeah. Anyway,
I think it's a visual large, but
wow, don't body shame my podcast. All right. Okay, so they blah 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 blah. Where was I? Oh yeah, so
took 3 years.
Right, took 3 years, and finally the Little Rock School Board was like, okay, we'll do it at the high school in 1957. So this is when 9 students were chosen to attend the high school, and they were called the Little Rock 9. They were like jeered by a group of white people when they got there. Jeered with a J, as in James, jeered. And the governor, Orval Faubus,
sounds racist.
Yep, just a fucking asshole, sent members of the Arkansas National Guard to stop them from entering the school and said, quote, blood will run in the streets, unquote,
oh my God,
if black students enter the high school.
So what is this, a Trump inauguration speech?
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God. I'm sure they would have gotten along great. This guy and Trump.
Blood will run in the streets because he's just enter. Like really
it's like, we will shoot these kids if they enter, basically, is what he's saying.
Okay, it's not like
just chill.
It's not like we all bleed the same blood, and so like we'll see when blood runs that we're all actually equal on the inside.
No, I'd say that was a misinterpretation of his quote. But I like your optimism.
Thank you so much.
So they were not allowed to enter, obviously, despite the court order. So on September 25th, a few weeks later, President Eisenhower stepped in, and he organized the Arkansas National Guard plus 1,000 paratroopers to enforce the integration. They were escorted in, and Bates was their advocate. And during this whole time, Daisy Bates, first I have to say her name more. Yeah. Daisy Bates's home was the headquarters for the Little Rock 9. So on their first day of school, like they left together from Daisy's house all the time, and her house was just like a buzz with like Thurgood Marshall and like all these incredible civil rights leaders like working and explaining. Like I heard an interview where one of the Little Rock 9 said that like Thurgood Marshall like was, you know, explaining to them like what was happening and what their rights were and stuff like that.
Yeah, how old were The Little Rock Nine?
They were high school kids.
Okay, so like definitely old enough to understand.
Yeah,
what's
yeah. I
going
mean,
on.
they were between 14 and 17, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was only one who was a senior that year, but so they were like they were teenagers.
Yeah, so they know what's up.
Yeah, they could like get it. But I did also hear like in an interview, there was one of them who was like, but we were still teenagers. Like we kept being like, why do we only have one Jeep to drive in? Like why can't we drive in 2 Jeeps or something? like they were like, they still had like silly concerns, and like the parents and Daisy Bates had to be like, okay, but like this is a big deal.
Yeah, they're like, he's like the National Guard is just
good.
yeah.
Like for my first day, like they said that they were like, we were wondering how we looked and stuff, and Daisy Bates was like, okay, so President Eisenhower sent the army, like you need to calm down.
It's like the National Guard is just really making my face break out.
I know. It's like
these smoke bombs are just like really clogging my pores.
Yeah.
No, that's so funny.
They were like, but so I think they got it, but also they were teenagers.
But you're a teenager.
It is what it is. But they were, they were aware enough to like know what's happening, obviously. So yes, so they are like escorted in, and and from that point on, like throughout the whole year, Daisy Bates was their advocate, was sort of their touchstone of comfort while they were integrating into this white school. And it was definitely like a challenging year.
Yeah, I feel like that would make her house a real target.
Yeah, they definitely experienced, they did, and the kids did, and the kids' parents all experienced a ton of intimidation and threats and like bricks in the window and all that.
Yeah.
All the classic stuff, death threats, so they definitely experienced all of that while this was happening. Sorry, I had a little claw. Now I'm burpy. I
love that that's your burp.
Just a little internal burp.
It's so dainty.
I have those dainty burps. So in 1957, she was named Woman of the Year by the National Council of Negro Women. In 1958, she and the Little Rock Nine received the Spingarn Medal, which is the NAACP's highest award. In 1959, they were... Oh wait, there's more about this. Sorry, I have a lot of notes.
I'm fascinated by your note taking.
I know it's not the most. I should do it on the computer, but I just like to write it down better. But then we have moments like this where I like forget where I am. So this is like chill. Yeah, no, I did all that. Okay. Oh, this was one interesting kind of perspective. So one of the Little Rock Nine, Minnie Jean Brown Trickey.
Wait, so there was Minnie and Daisy?
Yeah, classic. Yes, there was Minnie and Daisy.
I mean, this whole thing does seem like a Disney fairy tale,
right?
I'm sure it has a totally happy ending with nothing bad else happening.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, what did Minnie say?
She was one of the Little Rock Nine, and she actually had sort of a critical take on Daisy. So in 1962, Daisy published her autobiography, which is called The Long Shadow of Little Rock. The intro was written by Eleanor Roosevelt.
Pretty cool. What a great title, too.
The Long Shadow of Little Rock, yeah. So she writes this autobiography, and it's like very well received and ends up being like republished with a National Book Award and all this stuff. But this one of the Little Rock Nines named Minnie Jean Brown Trickey, she argued that she thought that the book actually gave Daisy too much credit for the plight of the Little Rock Nine. And she kind of thought that she silenced the effort and the voice of the parents of the kids who also had to take a huge risk. So I don't know. That's just like an interesting perspective that I heard. I mean, she was
a little tricky.
Oh
boy.
Oh,
this is the quality of jokes you're getting today.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm a little under the weather.
It's a free podcast. But yeah, so she was arguing like it's her dad that lost a job, it's her mom that got like all these threats, and like they had to deal with it. I mean, I didn't read the book, so I don't know, but I do it does seem like if it wasn't for Daisy Bates, like she was able to get the national attention on it and be this sort of figure. It's also really cool to hear about her. I mean, she was one of the few national female civil rights figures. She was also apparently, I mean, I saw pictures of her. She was very beautiful, and she was always apparently like very glamorous. Like she always dressed up. She always wore heels, and she was sort of like you know, like the most glamorous woman in Little Rock. Like,
yeah, so sort of an ideal spokesperson.
Yeah, she was also a really powerful speaker. Like, I listened to her speaking, and she just is very commanding and very like just really stands strongly in her voice, you know. And so I think that, like, without her, I don't know that the media attention would have been as strong. But that is to say that, like, obviously the parents of these kids and the kids themselves put their lives and, you know, their children's lives in such risk to lead to pave the way for generations after them. And so it is a lot of that too,
if we have a podcast about these unsung heroes in history, it's worth noting that when we have these sort of like infamous integration stories, that we do remember, like, we often remember the kids, not always, but usually, but the parents generally are not in that same history book.
Yeah. And it really is their decision, you know, if they want to send their kid there. And that's a big risk to, like, you know, risk your kid's life and safety and happiness, you know, and you think it's the best thing. And I think, you know, in this situation, at least they had 9 of them together, you know?
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's just an interesting perspective I came across. But basically, she is sort of championed historically as, like, Daisy Bates is championed historically as the person who put the Little Rock Nine on the national map, and, like, who really advocated for them in that kind of strong way.
She, like, knew how to use the press to her advantage.
Exactly. Yeah. And like I said, she was a very attractive figure, both literally and sort of spiritually or whatever. And kids were really drawn to her. Kids felt really safe with her. So, even though she never had any kids herself. In 1959, they were forced to close the Arkansas State Press due to low ad revenue. So then they moved to D.C. and
Daisy and her husband moved
to D.C. They worked for the Democratic National Committee's voter education drive and for President Johnson's anti-poverty program while living there. She spoke at the 1963 March on Washington. In 1965, she suffered a stroke, so they returned to Arkansas. In 1968, she worked for a community revitalization project in Mitchellville, Arkansas, building sort of community centers and roads and stuff like that. In 1980, her husband passed away, and in 1984, she resurrected the Arkansas State Press, but only ran it for a few years, I think 4 years during that time, then ended up selling it because she was old. So she died in November 4th, 1999, and she was the only and the first obviously the first and only African American to quote lie in state, which I had to look it up in the Arkansas Capitol. So that basically just means when someone lies in state, it means that they, like, put your body at the state capitol and people can come, like, pay their respects before you're buried.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's a big deal.
Yeah.
So she was, like, the first and only African American to lie in state in the Arkansas Capitol.
Is it like the Arkansas government has to, like, approve people?
I think I don't think you just, like, willy-nilly throw a body at the Capitol and be like, come look at it.
Yeah.
No, I think it's
you just bring a coffin to the Capitol steps and see who comes.
And just, like,
send out a little Facebook invite
thing. No, I think it's like a state-run thing. And that same day that she passed away, the Little Rock Nine were honored by President Clinton at the White House. You know, he's from Arkansas. Oh, well, there's also an interesting fact. When the one senior of the Little Rock Nine graduated that following spring, Martin Luther King went to the graduation, but Bates didn't, because her face and name were more well known in Little Rock than MLK.
Oh wow.
And so they thought that her presence would potentially incite violence.
Yeah. So
MLK went to the graduation, but Daisy Bates did not.
The unknown.
Yeah. No. I mean, like, I think, you know, it was 58. So he was known, but I think just, like, she was, like, within Little Rock itself, she was, like, such a contentious figure.
Well, and the March on Washington hadn't happened yet.
Right, like, right. Yeah.
Did you ever see that Key and Peele sketch about the person who had to follow Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech?
I've heard of it. I don't think I watched it.
It's so funny.
That's really
when
funny.
You said that she spoke on the March on Washington, I was like, I hope it wasn't that.
I know.
It's just like a guy who gets up there and is like, I mean, how am I going to follow that? And he was like, everything he said, yep. Everything. And, how about just everybody, just hug a white person. Well, no, let's not all go to the same one. So
that's really funny. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that definitely. I think that the other speeches were a little overshadowed, unfortunately, but she did speak, which is pretty cool. Before she passed away in 1966, she carried the torch for the Olympics in Atlanta.
Oh,
pretty
cool.
And after she passed away, Arkansas declared the third Monday in February both George Washington's birthday and Daisy Gatson Bates Day.
Oh.
So she has a day in Arkansas. So she was like one of the few sort of national female civil rights leaders. And she's mostly known for being the champion of the Little Rock Nine and forcing integration to happen because it was legal. Because it was
the right thing to do.
The literal law.
And it's stupid to not do that.
Yeah. So that was my person, Daisy Bates. My sources were Britannica.com, Biography.com, NPR, this story by Juan Williams, and blackpast.org. That is mine.
Well,
happy Martin Luther King Day.
That was great.
Thank you.
My person is the opposite.
Oh no, a bad guy?
Bad guy.
Wait, can we pause so I can get water and pee?
Okay,
Thank you.
hang on.
Hello.
Hi.
We just taped Ariel's section and then it didn't record. So now we're doing it again. So I'm going to act as if I've never heard this.
And I'm going to act as if I've never told this.
And it's going to be great.
And it is
Let's
going to
hope
be
you hear this, audience.
Yeah, this is the real test. I'm not doing it again.
Nope, we might just have a short
We'll just have
podcast.
a 30-minute episode otherwise.
Yeah.
Whoop, no internet connection. Oh, because I closed it.
Okay.
Hold on. Let's pause it one more time. Okay, for real this time. All right. We're ready.
All right.
So mine's... You already know. It's... all right. My person who is terrible and a monster is... She's not a monster. It's that's the idea, right? We're all complicated. But she's just
not that complicated.
She's a bad person. And honestly,
does it look like it's recording? Should we just
yes,
check?
the red button is on.
But that was on last time.
But was it? Now I don't know.
Maybe we don't know. Okay, let's hope
there's nothing else we can do except
this is gonna be
just try it.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So my person is Mary Elizabeth Bessie Tyler. Mm-hmm. But I'm excluding Bessie from the whole narrative because she doesn't deserve a nickname. Nicknames are for friends.
Yep.
And I don't believe that she really had any friends, you know?
She had one.
Yeah.
I know the story already now. So.
Yeah. You can help me tell it.
Wow.
But also because, as I noted to Molly earlier, the Bessies on our podcast have tended to be awesome women.
Yeah.
And I don't want to put her in the same name as
it. Also,
them.
you don't have to say, as I said to Molly earlier, because you said this all to me earlier.
I know. Okay, so
pretend I never heard it.
Mary, I'm just not as good of an actor as you. It's hard for me to pretend like you haven't heard it, but you guys haven't heard it. So Mary Elizabeth Tyler was born June 10th, 1881, somewhere in the South. I would assume Georgia, but just based on where the rest of the story takes place.
But it's not sure.
But who knows? Because there's not much written about her younger life. But she was one of 6 kids, and she grew up very poor and then got married when she was 15 and had a baby 4 days before her 16th birthday. So not an ideal start, but
yeah.
But at this point, I feel like I can still see her as somebody who is sympathetic, and that goes away pretty quickly.
Right.
Her husband either abandoned her or he died. I think she told everybody that he died, but this has happened before on the podcast where I forget who, but somebody else said oh yeah, my husband, he just died. And it turned out he had just left her. And it's it's just way less embarrassing if he died, and everybody was dying back then.
So you could just, and there was like no Facebook to like track them down.
Right. And no, like
my exes, all my exes are dead actually. So I don't know.
All
if you
my
know
exes
this,
live
but
in Texas and they're dead. They're buried there.
all my exes literally might as well be dead. What are they doing with their lives?
Ugh. I have
some good
a couple
ones.
good ones who I hope the best
Not all.
for.
And not all.
I'm rooting for. There's
tell
only
you
one
right
who I
now.
really do that, but one's a doctor and he's married. I'm so happy for him.
A doctor.
Yeah, he was valedictorian of his high school. It's weird considering the guy who I dated before, who I'm dating now, because the guys who I used to date were all great, and the guy who I dated before, one guy. This is complicated, but of my 5 boyfriends, only one's been a piece of shit.
Wow, that's great. That's really good odds, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, you had one huge piece
But
of
I had
shit,
one
though.
really bad one.
I just had a bunch of little pieces. I had like a bunch of little poops, and you had like a huge turd.
I had diarrhea.
Yeah, you just had like one diarrhea, and then like a bunch of great.
And then
Great
just like
time.
really healthy, fibrous, like, oh, you're clearly
Poos.
getting your roughage in relationships.
Yes,
Poops.
yes.
So Mary Elizabeth Tyler is also a pile of dog shit. That's not fair to dogs. She does what any teenaged widowed mother in 1897 would do. She marries a bunch more dudes. Which like, I mean, I don't know what she looked like, but she was very like manipulative. And she,
There's no pictures of her anywhere? Or like, I guess they didn't have or like paintings.
there's like a black and white drawing of her.
And she I mean, I feel like those are so hard to tell if someone was pretty or not. It's like they all look the same kind of.
Based on like what people used to think was pretty,
Who knows? Yeah.
you know,
You never know.
I mean,
But at least she must have been charming enough to
great.
like talk her way into things, it sounds like.
yeah, it's hard to, well, also Mary Tyler Moore keeps coming up, who was beautiful.
It was beautiful. Yes, that's not who we are.
Here, I'll show you this
at all.
picture, and we'll put it on like the Facebook page and stuff, but she was a not so attractive.
No, she was very ugly.
Yeah. Real thin lips and sort of like a frown, a permanent frown.
And like 7 chins.
Couple chins, but I think back then that was a sign of
wealth
prosperity. Okay, so she gets married maybe 4 times. It's hard to tell, but she was just very good at manipulating people. One of her contemporaries said, quote, "Her experience in catering to men's appetites and vices had given her an insight into their frailties. She knew how to handle them all."
So she was a slut.
She was yes, but she was just like good at using her tits, you know, which
she's a hoe.
I have no problem with that.
No, I don't either. I mean, I have a problem with a lot of things she does, but not that.
Not this. She was smart and charming and more than anything determined, and it was her determination that would end up reviving the KKK.
Bangs. No.
She was like, I'm gonna bring them back. No, she brought back the KKK.
Chill, Mary.
Not great. So a quick history on the KKK, because when people hear the KKK, they either have this idea of the KKK in the original form in the 1860s and 70s, riding around at night, or they have the idea from like the civil rights era.
Yeah.
But there was there was like a weird thing that happened in the 20s. There was like a second coming of the KKK.
Right.
But it was originally created in 1866 by former Confederate soldiers, including the guy who Forrest Gump is named after. I forget his Nathaniel Bedford Gump or whatever, or Forrest, whatever, it doesn't matter. And these men were sad and pathetic, and they were
losers.
they were literal losers. But also it was like, we just like all these, I lost my leg for nothing. And so they started the KKK, which was a social club for these guys to come together and complain and be like, black people being free is the worst.
Yeah.
And it became their mission to do everything that they could to derail Reconstruction. So that meant that they started terrorizing black people who, especially, I mean, kind of any black people, but especially the ones who like had the audacity to run for and gain office, because that was like
How dare they?
Right. That was like yeah, exactly.
Do the Democratic thing. Yeah, because during that time there was a lot of African American representatives in office.
Right. That was the point of Reconstruction.
Yeah.
And
Shit was looking up.
well, and I read somewhere like I guess it was, I forget who was president at this point, but whoever was president originally wanted
In like what, the 10s? I'll look it up.
This is the 1860s.
Oh, that would
1870s.
have been. Oh, well, the 60s, half the 60s was Lincoln, and then.
But Lincoln
Jackson.
didn't see the end of the Civil War. He was assassinated before then, right? Am I wrong? I could be horribly
I
wrong.
think you're wrong.
I know at some point Ulysses S. Grant was
I think
president.
he died in 65. I'm just gonna look up presidents.
Okay, well, while you're doing that, since you've already heard this story.
Yeah.
Well, but so there was one thing about whoever was president wanted sort of like a more lenient, relaxed Reconstruction.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the Congress overrode that. Like they had written a bill that was a much more strict version of Reconstruction.
Yeah, Lincoln died in 65, right after the end of the Civil War, and then it was Andrew Johnson.
Johnson, that's who it was.
Yeah.
So Johnson wanted this like, like sort of like easy Reconstruction that wasn't really that big of a deal. And Congress was like, no, we want like a real one. So Congress
Have you ever heard of Benjamin Harrison?
No. When was he president?
1889 to 1893. Between Grover Cleveland's. Like Grover Cleveland. Wow. I don't know anything about this dude. Benjamin Harrison. Who's this guy? Wow.
Anyway, but so Congress sent this bill that was like Reconstruction takes priority and and Andrew Johnson vetoed it, and then because he was like, I need the South to vote for me. Mm-hmm. And then Congress overrode his veto. So they're like, fuck you, dude, which was not popular with the Klan. Mm-mm. So they started terrorizing black people and then also white people who were supporting Reconstruction. They were just the biggest assholes, and they would commit these acts at night because they were cowards. And they broke into a jail and ended up killing 8 black men. Like they would just do this shit in the middle of the night. Yeah. They would do it in large groups so that it was harder to prosecute them, but it didn't really matter anyway. Yeah. Because so like a lot of Democratic leaders at the time, which were not the Democrats of today, but they would try to basically distance themselves from the Klan by saying like, oh, they're just like a bunch of poor, ignorant white folk, they don't even really have power and but it was actually a lot of middle class people. It was a lot of like doctors and merchants. I don't know why I said that, but it was like all people like shopkeepers or whatever, and also cops. Yeah, there were a lot of cops in the KKK, and so like, yeah, it was just an interesting thing like this when people are like, why don't like when something happens, like, why is it so hard for black people to call the police? And it's like, well, there's a history of them being in the Klan. Yeah. So that could have something to do with it.
Or ignoring the Klan.
Right. They would also, if they weren't in the Klan, these cops, they had friends who were in the Klan, and so they wouldn't do anything to enforce anything. And even if they tried to, they couldn't find any witnesses who were willing to testify because the Klan was terrifying. Mm-hmm. So as stupid as they were, their terrorism was very effective. And then Reconstruction lost support, which is like a shitty thing and it's bad. But on the bright side, it meant that the Klan no longer had like this common enemy or this common cause to rally around. And so they sort of faded away. And they still existed, but they weren't active until Mary Elizabeth Tyler. So Mary,
the Bad Bessie.
God, the Bad Bessie. Yes. At some point, Mary got involved with the Better Babies contests. I still like can't believe that
Honestly,
that's a thing.
They're still pretty shitty. We need better babies.
But all babies are dumb.
They're so cute though.
What?
They're so cute though.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's like hit
it's
yet.
like how you see dogs. It's
Yeah.
how I see babies.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't want to have either. It's so much work. I just want to be selfish.
Did I tell you the other day after watching, I guess it was the 3rd episode of Black Mirror, I had to Google for like an hour just videos of dogs playing in the snow.
Yeah. I thought you would have liked that one the best.
I did like
the most
it.
Disturbing.
I liked it, but I have to like
refresh.
I have to reset my brain and be like, there's good in the world. Look at this dog that gets lost in the snow and is happy about it. And
That's
then
great.
the dog that can sled by himself. Oh my God. It was so cute.
I saw that one actually.
Yeah, everybody saw that one. So yeah, the Better Babies contest was this racist competition. Because in the 1910s, people were like, hey, babies sure do die a lot. Our infant mortality rate, very large. I'm sure it has nothing to do with how nobody washes their hands and we don't know how germs are spread and our water is gross. It's probably because these babies are they're just not white enough.
Yeah. I mean,
and
that's logical.
maybe we should have a competition for like who's the whitest baby.
Oh my God. I would have won. I was a pretty white baby.
Yeah, you got that Irish
shit.
skin. I used to be strawberry blonde.
I was
when I was
very
a baby.
blonde.
Were you really?
Yeah, I was very blonde until I was like 4.
That's
5.
crazy. Your hair's so dark.
It's so dark now. Yeah. There you go.
So here's how they did it. They would measure babies in the way that you're supposed to, like height and weight, but then they would also measure their skull shapes and like the dents in their head or whatever else people used to do for eugenics.
Yeah. And like see who's as closest to the like European ideal or whatever.
Yeah, of like who had the most like moral skull.
Moral Skull sounds like a rock band.
Yeah, Moral Skull.
I don't know. I don't like rock music.
Okay. It was the first eugenics competition to be held at state fairs.
Right. First of many.
First of so many. And the winners would be dressed in little graduation gowns.
Honestly, that's cute as hell.
It's so cute.
That's really cool.
I wonder if that's how the Gerber baby started.
I
don't know. I'm just spreading fake news
Probably
now.
just like a baby company that was like, we should have a baby.
Should have a cute baby.
Yeah, those don't seem related to me.
So Mary was working for them. She was what was called a hygiene volunteer. And her job was to organize their parades and manage publicity for them.
It's a weird name for that.
A hygiene volunteer.
It's not related at all.
Yeah, I saw that title and I was like, what the fuck is a hygiene volunteer? I don't know. To me, it seems like she would just like change diapers.
Yeah, but it sounds like she had a real impact.
Yeah. So then at some point she meets this guy named Edward Clark. Edward came from a wealthy to-do family in Georgia. His dad was a colonel for the Confederacy.
A colonel?
Yeah, I know. I was just joshing.
Oh, got it. I thought you didn't know, and I was like, wait, Ariel,
no.
stop. Remember when we debated if Tulane was a good school? I'm just kidding.
I don't remember ever having that debate.
You don't?
No. Did we?
Did, yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, I know it's a good school. I think you were arguing that it's like the Ivy of the South or something. And I was like,
That's just what it was like. Tulane and Emory and like Duke and Vandy are the South's version of Ivies.
Was they're old?
No, because they're good. Like they're not as old as Ivies. That's why they're not Ivies.
We had this debate already. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
It's a good school.
Okay. I mean, it doesn't matter. I'm not using that degree anyway. It's a very expensive school.
Yeah, baby.
Okay.
That's all that matters.
Yeah, right. So Edward's brother owned a newspaper in Atlanta, and Mary and Edward meet, and not only, I'm going to tell this joke again, not only do they go into, I know, I'm sorry. Not only do they go into business together, but they also put their business in each other.
Wow. I thought, I could have also gone like this. Not only do they go into business together, they go into bed together.
I could have, but I like the idea of calling genitals business.
Yeah, that's fun.
Because they were fucking.
Okay.
Because they were having sex.
Yeah, we did this.
Because I know, because they were having intercourse. Because they were doing it. Yeah, just a couple of wealthy Southern racists getting it on. It's a real aphrodisiac sometimes when you see a baby a baby in a graduation gown.
Yeah. Wait, what was he doing there again? They just met at the state fair. I don't really know
what he was doing there, and I don't know how they met exactly.
Okay,
but they meet, and they're like, they're just "You're as unattractive as I am. Do you want to get out of here?"
Did you see a picture of him too?
No, I didn't. I didn't really Google him because he's a man.
Yeah.
So so the way that they go into business together, for real, is that they set up the Southern Publicity Association, which is it's a PR firm. That's all it is. Mary also joined the Daughters of America, which was an anti-immigrant, pure lineage bullshit organization.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you start with Daughters of, it's not good.
Nope.
It's not good. So basically, Mary and Edward were like, they just wanted to do anything that would make them money. They were just greedy as hell. And at this time in Georgia, there was a lot of money in being a racist piece of shit. So at first, the Southern Publicity Association was just promoting stuff like the temperance movement and the Red Cross, until they were contacted by William Simmons. And William Simmons, if you know a lot about the KKK, his name will sound familiar to you, but he was he was like a fanboy, but for the KKK. He, in 1915, Birth of a Nation came out, and he saw that and was like, yeah, I want to do that. Like, it was because Birth of a Nation was just this like nostalgic.
He identified with it.
He really identified with it. It was this like nostalgic, like times of the good old days when the Klan ran things, and just, like, you're an 1890s kid, if whatever. So if you want to bring back the Klan, that's how you're an 1890s kid.
Yeah.
He was like an idiot. He was just he couldn't recruit very many people, and his advertising put him in debt. He would bill the Klan as the world's greatest secret social patriotic fraternal beneficiary order.
Rolls right off the tongue.
So long. It's like, choose which words. You don't need greatest.
No.
You don't need the worlds. Also, I think
it's really not focused on the world.
I think you're sort of really, what word am I trying to think of? Like, you're assuming that there's nothing else out there. And then when that didn't work, he tried calling it a high class order for men of intelligence and character. But even the Klansmen who would have joined were too self-aware to think that was them. They were like, no, we're not.
That doesn't sound like us.
We're not high character. No, thank you. And he, like, okay, Williamson, he was just like he was bad. He was just a failure. Like because he was a good speaker. So for a while he tried to be a minister, but then he kept running churches into the ground by like amassing all this debt and he was just bad at everything. Yeah. And
an idiot.
At one point, he, just so you know, like how bad he was at running the Klan and trying to recruit people, is at some point there was a parade for veterans, and they were like, all right, we'll give the Klan a spot in our parade. And he couldn't get anybody to come and march with him. So he hired 20 black men to dress in sheets and march for the Klan.
Woof.
I don't understand why he couldn't just hire 20 white men.
Was probably paying them very little.
You're right. There it is.
Yeah.
Because he had no money because he was in debt.
Right.
So finally, he makes the decision to hire the Southern Publicity Association. And Mary was like, cool, I totally know how to make money off of this idiot. And since William didn't have any money, they worked out this arrangement where Mary and Edward would get 80% of membership fees from any new member of the Klan. And William was like, fine, like nobody's joining my fucking group anyway. So like if you want to do this for basically free, fine, have at it. As long as I don't have to give you money up front. Excuse me. Sorry. That's for the first version of this episode that was deleted.
Yeah.
That's for you.
Wow.
So first, Mary and Edward changed the messaging and targets of the Klan because they argued that by only hating black people, the Klan was limiting its audience because white people up north didn't see black people as a threat. And in the southwest of the country, like there weren't that many black people. So like, what if you just added Jews to your list of people you hate? Just like
always had Jews.
Just like throw in the Jews and then the Catholics and then the immigrants and then alcohol and then communists.
Right. A great party.
Once when I was in, I guess we were like in 5th grade or 6th grade, my friend Jackie and I, this was like so interesting that we did this when we were 10. We like pretended to switch identities. She's this black Dominican girl and I was Jewish or whatever. And so for a day, like she wore my Jewish star. Like we were just like pretending or whatever. Yeah. And when you're 10, it's fine. She wore my Jewish star for a day and I think she put her do-rag on me. And wow. I know, but we were good friends. And yeah, at some point she goes, all right, I'm safe from the KKK. And I was like, oh, Jackie, no. They hate us too. And then our teacher was like, what the fuck are you guys doing?
That's really funny.
Just, it's why it's important to grow up with people who are different from you because so
you can bond over the fact that the KKK hates you both.
Yeah. And so you can like experiment with that stuff when it's appropriate and not when you're like a 25-year-old person who's like, I want to be black.
Yeah.
It was an interesting day. Anyway. So they're like making the Klan more appealing. Here's what the Atlantic, I think it was in the Atlantic, said about this time, which, I don't know if it's going to remind you of anything, if it's going to ring a bell, but here's what it said of why.
Sounds like it will.
Why it became so appealing. Fear and anxiety were widespread among native-born white Protestants that the country they had known and been accustomed to dominating was coming undone. They worried about an influx of Eastern European immigrants who adhered to communism and other supposedly subversive political creeds. The intellectual vogue for religious modernism, the expansion of political and sexual freedoms for women, and the perception that immorality, crime, and vice were all on the rise only confirmed the sense that the world was spinning beyond their control.
Yeah.
It's just white people afraid of
everything,
of not being in power anymore, basically. So using Edward's connections, Mary would go out and offer other newspapers these like quote unquote exclusive interviews with William Simmons, but actually she was just like doing that. She was like, everybody could get a fucking interview with him, but she called like all you have to do is call it exclusive. She made sure that newspapers included advertisements that had membership forms for the KKK. So smart. Just, nobody has to print off anything. Mm-mm. It's just right there in front of you. You don't have to go anywhere. You get the newspaper anyway.
So smart.
And she offered free membership to ministers, which is also very smart.
Right, because they can get their whole congregation on board.
Right. It's like it reminds me of in that documentary about the Hasids when they are like telling everybody to vote for Trump.
Yeah. Luckily, they all live in New York, so motherfucker.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter anyway.
But for local stuff, it does.
Yeah, it does. Mary Tyler then hired a bunch of people and split them up into different territories around the U.S. and sending them out to recruit new members. One estimate said that the Klan grew by nearly 1 million members. So, like, if you do the math, if every new member pays $10, which I think is what the fee was, it was $10, Mary and Edward are keeping $8.
Right. They become millionaires.
They became millionaires. Mary actually became one of the richest and, like, most powerful women in history up to this point.
Damn.
But that wasn't enough for this greedy bitch. Mary then became the owner of her own newspaper called The Searchlight, which was the newspaper for the Klan. So any Klan news or Klan goings on, they would have to buy this newspaper from her. And then, using the money that they had made from membership fees, Mary and Edward bought and operated a textile factory that made the Klan robes.
Totally monopolized.
It's so smart.
Racism.
It's what is it? Vertical integration.
Yeah, absolutely. Vertical integration.
So whenever they wanted, if they just like wanted to sell new robes, they would be like, oh, we're creating this new position in the Clan. And congratulations, you get a promotion, you need a new robe. Here you go. Wow. You have to buy it from us. So smart. And like at some point, like Mary and Edward were basically running the Clan for 2 years. And I saw something that was like, it was really just Edward. Like she was just doing the PR stuff. And that I was like, how dare you erase this horrible woman from history? Like, no, she was in charge.
No, she was in charge of being an asshole too.
Yeah, she was an evil person.
Wow.
And also because there were so many people who had joined the Klan, and because they became so visible, they were no longer operating at night in secrecy. And it was like even the white people who hadn't joined the Klan were like used to it, and so it wasn't this bad thing to them anymore. They were complicit.
Right.
Everybody just became like whatever.
Yeah. And
then Mary started a women's chapter of the Klan. So stupid. Okay, but then in 1919,
white feminism at its peak.
Yeah, right. Of like, it's also just this whole thing of like,
yeah, everyone's like, this is peak white feminism. I feel like peak white feminism is the women's chapter of the Klan. That's really the peak. It's all slightly better than that.
Yeah, I mean, if that's
it's
our bottom,
the same ends, I guess.
So, okay, but then. We have sort of a happy ending to this story because Mary and Edward's luck ran out. The New York World published articles accusing them of financial misconduct, and people were also like starting to catch on to how rich they were getting because Mary also decided to build this like house, this sort of like mansion in Atlanta. That was called, I forget what it was called, but it had something with the Klan in it, and it's now on the national, or not the national. Why do I keep saying national? It's now on like their historic registry, so you can't tear it down.
It sucks.
But the best part is that, okay, so Mary and Edward were both married this whole time, not to each other.
So crazy.
But
that was when I heard that the first time I was shocked.
You
so
guys
I hope you are shocked.
I know.
Listeners.
Her reaction the first time.
They were married the whole time.
The whole time married to other people. And at this time,
scandalous.
I think like fucking somebody who wasn't your spouse was illegal because it's like, 1919 and anything can be illegal.
Georgia.
So one day they're like in bed together and Edward is like, oh my God, Mary, it's so hot the way that you hate Jews. And she was like, oh my God, Edward, I think it's so hot the way that you hate immigrants. And then they were like, he was like, are you close? And she was like, I'm close. And then boom, the police bust in and they're like, you guys can't be doing this. You guys can't fuck because you're not married to each other.
That's right.
So you're under arrest. Also, there's whiskey everywhere. Yeah. And you can't drink whiskey. There's prohibition. Also, you guys are in the Klan. You fucking idiots. You keep preaching about how you can't drink alcohol because it's...
Or cheat on your spouse.
Or any of this shit. You're hypocrites. And we should know we're in the Klan too.
And they were like, my name is Sarah Smith. And they're like, no.
Yeah, Edward and Mary tried to give the police fake names, and they were like, we know who you are. Like, this house is named after you. Like, what are you doing?
They're like, wow, how did we get here? Concussion.
Yeah, Edward was like, what? You're not my wife? Oh my God, I thought I've been tricked.
Yeah.
Edward resigned from his position in the Klan. Poor Edward. And then he ends up getting arrested because he was caught with a sex worker and is charged with the Mann Act, MANN, which has something to do with like like you can't transport people for the purposes of fucking them. So it's basically, it's a human trafficking thing. But before he can go to prison, he flees the country like a little bitch. And then Mary is like, I'm not resigning. I didn't do anything wrong. I refuse to accept any criticism of me because white feminism. And then in 1923, she's forced out of the Klan because the Klan is like, even we don't want you. Yeah. Like you give the Klan a bad name. Right. And then she moved to Southern California and died a year later.
At a young age, right?
40. At a young age. She was like 42. I don't know how she died, but I don't care. Fuck her.
Yeah, she lived a very short but impactful life.
Edward was never seen again. He flees the country when he's like in his 70s. Yeah. My sources were the first version of this recording, the Eugenics Archive, The Second Coming of the KKK by Linda Gordon, For the Kingdom and the Power by Dale W. Lackman, The Atlantic, When Bigotry Paraded Through the Streets by Joshua Rothman, the History Channel, Buckhead Heritage Society, and Wikipedia. And fun fact, there are offshoots of Wikipedia that are the white supremacist version of Wikipedia so spooky that I read, and they are not well informed. So that's that.
Wow, what a good one.
That's Mary Elizabeth Tyler.
Plug your shoes.
Yeah, I do want to plug my shoes.
The only show I'm doing next week is Louis, my boyfriend's grandpa is turning 90, and we're doing a show at his retirement community.
Speak loudly.
In California.
Loudly and clearly.
It has to be clean.
In California? Oh yeah, you're going to LA.
Yeah, I'm going to LA for like 4 days. I'm going to be at the Kennedy Center tomorrow night, but that's after this comes out.
Yeah.
Or before this comes out, rather.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Wait, we're recording again on Monday, right? Is that our plan? Okay,
I think so.
I will be on Tuesday, January 16th. I'll be at Gotham Comedy Club at 9:30. On Wednesday at 7 o'clock, I'll be at the Irvington Town Hall Theater for a benefit for Planned Parenthood. I just closed my calendar. Get out of here. Okay. On Friday, January 19th, I'll be at the Pit at 9 o'clock. Saturday, the 20th, is All Female Reboot at the Tank at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And Sunday, January 21st at 6 o'clock, I'll be at Rebecca's in Bushwick. And that is it. Those are my dates. Happy Martin Luther King Day.
Yes, happy Martin Luther King Day. And we will see you.
We'll never see you. This is a podcast.
Well, we'll talk to you next week.
If you have any people who you would like to suggest, any women, email us at wellbehavedpod@gmail.com.
Very good.
You can follow us on Twitter, and you can join the Facebook group, and yeah, just keep
making
history.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.